Okay, and we are live.
Yes, we
So
are. I'm
we are.
Chloe.
And I am Sandy, and this is WordStitch.
It is WordStitch. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. That was really like pretty down for us, wasn't it? Like we were like really.
Yeah. And then like it just died. Like I
Yeah.
feel like we biffed the landing. Like we did real good on the uneven bars or parallel. I don't remember which one women do because I don't actually like watch that sort of thing. But I do know that there are difference. We do one and they do the other. But anyways, we were great. And then we just like landed and we like rolled for a while and never actually stood up. Here we are doing it now.
And
Woo!
here we are. So okay, but we're hoping that you are here to get some stuff done, and we are here to get some stuff done. Chloe, what are you working on today?
I don't know. I haven't gotten any work done in like ages.
Yeah.
I plotted out a new book. But I can't write that new book because I have like 2 other books I need to write first. But yeah, I realized yesterday that I wrote 6 books between April 2019 and April 2020, and I have not written anything since then. So, yeah.
So you're,
Like
but when you say you
right
haven't,
now.
I mean, you've published a lot since then.
Yeah, but I feel like I've just been like distracting myself. I feel like I've been doing all of this other stuff to like keep myself from acknowledging the fact that I haven't actually got anything done.
Hang on. Sorry. Here's another.
Yeah.
Here's another.
Thank you, Melanie. That is like kind of my normal pace, but like obviously it is not my pace right now. It's just what I do now.
Well, wait until we get to Nano, and then we can all like remember how fast Chloe writes, and it'll be better. It'll be
I don't
fine.
even do July Nano.
Yeah, but it's July. It
I
can.
know, but like it's the first one that I've missed in probably like 5 years.
Also, COVID. Okay, so everybody gets
Yeah,
this
it's
year.
COVID, and it's like my job being a nightmare and like everything else. Yeah,
There is much drama.
yeah,
And that's my dog. Hey,
yeah. That's
yeah, no,
that is
and it's not
like
going anywhere.
dog beatboxing.
Oh my god, she's like this against boxes. It's insane. But
Oh, she literally is beatboxing.
yes, she does this. I've been distracted all day too, but I'm drafting. I'm doing one of my novellas, and I didn't draft a lot of words this month, but I cut like 27,000 or something from that
Which is
sequel.
huge. Did you end up like being able to just cut like an entire plot line? Is that what you did, or did you have to like get real? I mean, obviously you're gonna get creative with some of it, but
I mean, some of it, a very large amount of it was me being like, all right, this is really corny. No one needs to read this. Like,
I
and then
love
like
that.
cutting it, like I'd be like, this scene could be described in like a sentence. Like she did this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there was that. But I also feel a little bit like you, like I'm a little out of practice now then with the actual drafting. So I'm having like I tried to run some word sprints for myself earlier today, and it was slow. So hopefully I do a little bit better this time because we're going into fall, right? And fall is one of those
Yeah.
productive times of years when you actually kind of have to be on your game because like the rest of the year, if you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
Actually, I do know what I'm working on. I just realized that this actually like
oh no. Did you freeze, Chloe? Did she freeze? I think she froze, you guys. And that's my dog, more beatboxing. But it is 4:05, and we are supposed to be doing the writing thing. So I think Chloe's frozen. So I'm going to try to put up my screen. But let's go ahead and get started with our write-in, and I'll mute us so you guys don't have to hear that. And we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, we are back.
Yeah.
Yay.
Like
Sorry about
Sandy
that,
just
guys.
apologized for me.
That was a crazy gremlins. And in the meanwhile, some people came in. So it was good timing, actually, as far as like, getting cut off goes. I think we're only like a minute late or something. But so did you get any writing done during that time?
I don't know what all.
Yes. Oh, there's a
I've got a weird delay for you. We might have to restart again. I'll restart again, of course. But real quickly, I don't know how much I said before I got cut off. My Chrome just crashed on me. Sandy, am I making sense, or is it all coming out gibberish?
No, you're making sense. It's just that your picture is either significantly behind your or ahead of your voice.
All right.
Ahead of your voice.
I'll restart in a second. This is, remember, like back in the day before they had satellites figured out and all of that, and like you'd have like one reporter in New York talking to another reporter in California, and there'd be that like 20-second delay, and somehow in the last 5 years they figured that out. I blame satellites, but I guess it's actually not. Well, yeah, I guess anyway, it doesn't matter. We don't need to get into that science. That's a weird way to go. Anyways, I realized that I actually had work that I had to get done because of deadlines. So I am doing my proofreading on Hazel. And yeah, so I got like half of the first chapter done. She's about to steal a kitten.
Oh, okay. And so it turns out I have the delay, by the way, not you. So I will restart. But
was that in comments? I wasn't looking at comments.
That was in some comments. But other people, by the way, are getting some stuff done. But I appreciate that Hazel is stealing another kitten, because I think that your save the cat moments in that story are spot on for that character.
You mean the fact that she literally saves a cat?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's like the first thing that she does.
This is interesting. Apparently, is this our problem that like there's that I was using a timer wonky or using it at all? Did you see that?
I don't know, because I haven't been writing. I am still getting an echo from you, by the way. Like I'm still like you're still picking me up. But I haven't been watching anybody's streams lately. It's no hatred toward anybody else. Again, I've been having issues getting work done, and then it's just like sad if I'm like sitting in on somebody's stream and not doing anything. So I have been reading, at least, which is kind of like research, except that I was reading outside of genre, and so now I'm looking at writing outside of genre, which is absolutely the dumbest thing I could ever do right now, but here we are. Also, I now have very strong opinions about alien romance.
Oh, do you? We should talk about writing to market, honestly. Like, I mean, this is probably something we all have to fight. And I feel like it's that kind of thing where like you start writing and you're like, I'm going to write what I want because I'm an artist.
And then there's a time where either you're like, I'm going to write to market because I like food.
I like getting paid.
Or you're like me and I'm like, I'm going to write to market. Oh, except what's that shiny thing over there? And why is nobody talking about that shiny thing? I'm going to write about that shiny thing, and I'm sure it'll be
everybody's
fun.
going to want it. Yeah. Exactly, right. Except then they don't. And so you're, I don't know. So, and I think writing to market is a hard concept too. Like, what does it even mean? Like, what are, so like I think when I started this, I would have assumed that writing to market meant something like writing in a popular genre. Like, oh, I should just write romance because that's the market, as opposed to like.
No, it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, like the romance market right now is hot on shifters who are like in whatever harem, and also you need this kind of alpha male, like. I think that's complicated.
That is where I'm having that issue. God, I'm still echoing on yours. unless it's me somehow. I don't know how I'd be echoing though on my own.
It could be my devices. I'll see if I can't figure that out.
But yeah, like it's really, it comes down to tropes. And it's not like you could say that I'm going to write romance or I'm going to write sci-fi. You can even say like I'm going to write in this dead field. There are certainly things that like, and I mean, I'm going way too vague when I say that there are things that trad publishers won't pick up, because trad publishers won't pick up paranormal romance. So like, they won't pick up hot stuff, but there's also stuff that's like not hot that of course they won't pick up, but there's still a market for it. So when you say right to market, it's not even saying don't touch that like post World War II historical romance. Or I mean, again, we're always going to be talking about romance because that's the only thing I write, and that's half of what Sandy writes. So like romance is just what we know a bunch about. Everything we say applies to some extent to other genres. It's just the ones that are like always on my head if I need an example. But like if you're writing a post World War II historical romance, there's not like a huge market for it, but there are people buying it. You can absolutely write it and write to market, but that's the thing, is that you still have to match what the people who are reading it are reading. So it's not about like whether that book is a hot seller or not, but that you're actually matching what the readers want to read. Which unfortunately does mean to an extent that you have to kind of not copy what other people are writing, but you do have to like read a lot within that genre, and you have to see what the common tropes are and like gauge for yourself what the readers are going to like and what they're not going to like, what is missing, but like missing in a way that you think that they're still going to read it, as opposed to missing because nobody wants to read that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, and I mean, it's true in all genres, right? But certainly like romance is, we do know it a lot better in some ways. And I think it's one where if you mess up expectations, you can find yourself particularly in trouble, right? Like not that, and which is crazy because there's so many different niches that you can write to. So like you would think there would be tons of ways to write to market, and there kind of are. And then like also you got to know the market for your niche. By the way,
Melanie, I don't know if you saw the comment Melanie just made about having a romance idea. But a fun fact, like me mentioning that post World War II romance, I mentioned it because it's actually like a trending genre right now.
So hey.
I just figured that like I was the only one who actually knew that, so I was kind of lying when I said it was a dead genre. It was just like nobody's gonna know that this is a thing, so it's a good one to pull out. But it is a decent. It's actually a fairly decent genre. They just won't. Trad publishing houses won't pick up anything that's historical from the 20th century.
Hey, so before we go into our next thing, are you going to do it? Am I going to do it? Should I share the timer?
Oh, I have the timer up. I just forgot to share screen.
You do it. Okay. So while you're doing that, shout out to Spence, who is apparently moving and is making sure she has the correct sewing supplies, for the temporary.
I understand because we have been there before.
Yeah. Good luck. You can do it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. Here, we'll sacrifice a goat for her. Your character sacrifices a goat.
Awesome. We're gonna go sacrifice goats, and we'll see you guys in 25 minutes.
have we been done for a long time? I totally lost that.
Probably like 15 seconds.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Not a crazy amount of time. About enough time for me to be like, should I start writing messages in my little text box there?
Yes. Oh, okay. I think I'm almost done with the scene, so I'm doing decent with my stuff. Oh, and we've got folks who are getting some words in. 525 for CB, good. But didn't use the prompt. Seriously, you didn't sacrifice a goat? It's okay. We're gonna forgive you. And if you have just come in, let's see. So hi to Megan and Jace. Good to see you both. What were we talking about before the break? Before the thing? Writing to market?
We were talking about that.
We were talking about that. Oh, 716 for Herb. It's nice work. I'm not good at writing to market. I think you are probably much better because you do much more research on all of this. I think I probably need to pick a genre. I need to choose, right? I do most of my reading in YA. That is not the place where you are likely to do most of your money making.
No, it's a much harder grind there.
Yeah, right. But I actually enjoy reading YA, so that's a problem. But okay, wait, we do have a topic though. Post World War II romances.
History though.
The thing is, so I don't ever read historic romance, like ever, unless we're talking Courtney Milan and only for research.
Yeah, I read her, and there's one other from that same time period, Lisa Kleypas, who I mentioned before. She's the one that's got like 24 books that are in the same series. That's like 4 series that have like all branched off of each other. So like I don't know, it's like series within series. It's weird, but like also because of that, I keep reading them because they're a series. And I started in like the 3rd series and had to go back to the beginning and all that. But anyway, so I read those 2. I never got into the like the Scottish stuff or the Irish stuff. I have no idea what the equivalent is for England, but there was a series that took place, like it would have been the same time period as colonial America, because it was the French and Indian War. They were English soldiers who had fought in the French and Indian War and then went home to England. Which that was interesting because it was just slightly off from the Victorian stuff that is like Lisa Kleypas and Courtney Milan. But other than that, like you said, I haven't really ventured out, and it's very specifically those couple of authors. But like also history is just not my thing. However, Spence did say that what she was thinking about going into was a post-World War II vampire novel, which I will say that for vampires, one of my favorite elements of vampires is when they go back in time. I hate history, but like in television shows, like with oh God, what was the one? I know you want it to be Vampire Diaries, but it's not the one where it's the werewolf and the vampire and the ghost living together.
I know what you're talking about. That Being Human?
Human, yes. Like when they went into Aiden's past, like that was my favorite stuff in it. It was like seeing the old story, seeing like the Selena whose name was tattooed on him and all of that. Like I love that element of vampire stuff. And I feel like it's one that like if it's not in it, then I don't want it. Like I don't want the vampire series at all if I don't get some like crazy flashbacks.
Well, I mean, for vampires, part of the appeal is immortality, right? So you're like you want to see what happened previously. And some shows like the Vampire Diaries go so nuts with it that at some point you're like, I'm sorry, what time period are we in?
I also
Or
just like dumped 800 sharks in that. But at the beginning,
I love
when
that show.
The current time was good, the historical stuff was good.
Yeah. And so I don't, are we talking about Being Human, the American version?
The American, which is technically Canadian. But yes, I am referring to that. I only watched the first season of the British. That's the other version of it, right?
Yeah.
And I got really frustrated with who Aiden was in the British one. If you guys are not familiar with this series, there's a British version, and then they made an American version of the British version. And I guess this happens probably with most shows that they do that with. They're very different. Like it's like the same setup, but it's like two different people took a concept and wrote completely different things. So there are definitely like similarities along the way, but with the British one, the like dark brooding vampire is like this weird like guru thing going on, and it was not my jam at all.
You know, I feel like I got frustrated with Being Human because it didn't feel finished to me. Why did this happen? Did it finish? Was there like a weird ending?
I don't remember the ending of that, but on that note, like every single show ever has a bad finish.
It is totally not true.
There are very few shows that have good finishes.
This is
at least true. American shows, because we run shows into the ground.
I mean, there are. Bates Motel had an amazing finish.
I only watched the first season of that.
Well, it's also not a romance. It's an amazing show, but
no. I for like viewing. I love horror. I just did not. I know I was in the middle, like I was moving a whole bunch at the time, I think, and I just never picked it up.
That is Shira had a fantastic ending, you guys. If I haven't sort of that often enough. Right with Melanie just mentioned Discovery of Witches, which has historical aspects. I have not read that. I have heard it's amazing. It's like I have it. It's on my queue of things to read.
Yeah. That's another. CB just said, and Seek did not, because it was canceled halfway through season 2. That's another thing that happens. Either a show is run into the ground, or it's canceled before the writers have a chance to wrap it up. So the best you could hope for in that case is a Firefly Serenity thing, where there's enough fan outcry that they can at least make a movie to finish everything up.
Yeah, or you might end up with like a Mozart in the Jungle situation where they cut off at like a terrible breakup and you just never know what happens ever.
Or like The Secret Circle, where they're like, hey, we're introducing a brand new plot line. And then like, what was that? We're not going to know what that thing is. I recognize the fact that the Secret Circle series was terrible, but I loved those books. Secret Circle is the same author who wrote Vampire Diaries. They're both very 90s YA, which is a very, very different beast from nowadays YA. But as a YA, I loved both of those series, and I wanted to know what this crazy new plotline was.
I did too. And if we need to hope that, what's that one show? I Am Not Okay with This. If that doesn't come back, we're all.
Yeah, I'm really worried about that. This was a bad time for any show to come out, and I'm Not Okay with This did not get any like media coverage at all, but was amazing.
So amazing. Yeah. All right, we should do our writing thing. We're at that time.
Here, so this is our quick 30-minute. Someone has a bad ending. Yeah, like so many good shows with their bad endings. So we're gonna write for the next 30 minutes, and we will see you guys at 1:30.
Sorry, I thought I had more time than that.
Hey, you're fine. That was closer than last time.
Yes. Ooh, okay. Let's see here. So how'd you do? My focus was just shot.
I didn't do anything. I did, but I am stuck on this other project that I shouldn't be working on. But here we are, and like it's a project where I finally have an excuse to use a really complicated novel writing program.
Oh, you did go with a complicated project, not Y writer, something else?
For this one, I am using, what am I using? Where did it go? Did I lose it? I'm using Wavemaker.
I feel like I've looked into this and that I have not. Did we talk about this last time? Wavemaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then like completely unrelated to me looking into all of these things. Again, I had this new idea pop in my head, which is bad. Stop doing that. But also, as I like made little notes on it, I turned it into something way more complicated where there's 6 concurrent plot lines going on. And so I actually need some really complicated software to pull that off this time.
Then more power to you and Wavemaker, right? Yeah, that's good. It does look like, so we have some people with us who are also a little spent. So if you're with us, sorry about that. Hopefully we're not like bringing down the energy level. But if you got word,
the world is bringing down the energy level right now.
Yeah, right. Because it's just been rough. I don't know. You know, like you're kind of like hoping that like by this time in the year, like the apocalypse will be over. And since it isn't yet, I don't know. I think I've been more drained recently than I was even like a couple months ago. And that's my dog again.
Those boxes.
That's the door this time. She's like a little velociraptor, and she can open things if they're not like latched. So she's a hazard. But there was a discussion about YA that went on, which I can like never resist thinking about. It looks like there are a couple other people who are thinking about YA and like what subgenres there are. Which I think YA is interesting for an indie in particular, because honestly, it's really hard to sell. Like YA epic fantasy is so popular, right? And there are so many genre standards that it's a pretty difficult field to break into.
With conversations you're, like, about competing. YA, that YA technically isn't a genre. It's a combination of like reading level and trope. Like,
no, you think? I don't think so. I think it's a genre.
Because literally anything can be YA if you write it with characters at the right age level and you write it to that market. You have YA horror, you have YA sci-fi, you have YA mystery, you have YA contemporary, you have YA historical, you have YA romance, you have YA fantasy. Like, they're all just taking all of the genres and adding YA to them.
I disagree with this, because, and I think that's like saying like, well, romance isn't a genre because you have historic romance and paranormal romance and like all of these other romances, but they all fall under one umbrella. And the reason I disagree is because I think YA, no matter what you're doing, has some like pretty specific metrics that you have to meet. And it's not just age related. Like, you could write a horror about a 15-year-old and it could be very adult and
but
not count as YA.
But you could say the same thing about middle grade. And you could say the same thing about a children's book. Like,
yeah, and I would call those both genres. I would say those are genres, and then the things that you listed are subgenres. Like, it's because there are those like really specific rules. And actually it's a good comparison, right? Like, YA in middle grade, a lot of times there's crossover in terms of ages. You could write your middle grade book about a 14-year-old, or you could write your YA book about a 14-year-old, but your middle grade book would need to be about self journeying and adventure and friendships and
So I feel like I should state right now that apparently I misspoke when I said age, because I feel like everybody is going after that statement right now when, of course, that's not a 100%. Like, in general, YA is typically a specific age, but it's not always. And I feel like we have latched on to the fact that I said that you have to be a specific age for it to be YA.
No, but even besides age, right? Like, because even like let's take age, right? Like your YA character could be 16 or 25. Like, so in some ways,
I'm just saying that like there's a lot of, it looks like both between you and the chat, there's a lot of focus on me saying that, and I was not saying it's always age related. I was just saying that's a factor in it.
Yeah, I mean, I
guess there's like, there's a lot more YA novels where the main characters are between 17 and 25 than adult books where they're 17 to 25. And also there's a lot more YA books about 17 to 25-year-olds than there are YA books about 40-year-olds. So I do think age is an important factor, but is not always the case.
No, but definitely there are themes that relate to like levels of maturity, right? So like in your YA book, you are almost always going to have some romance, right? Like there will be some discovery of romance or, I don't know, maybe really serious romance.
And you don't think that's dictated by the fact that the target demographic is that age?
No, I do think that the age matters like that. That's why we're talking about age, but I think that that's also a genre standard. Like I think that there are like certain themes that you have to hit in your YA book. And if you don't, then you probably haven't written YA. Like you've probably written some other story.
I guess for me, I just think it's kind of weird to denote a genre by a demographic. That's not people who read this stuff.
Yeah, but it's more than that, right? Like I think what I'm saying is like, yes, there's a demographic, but only in the sense of like usually characters are a particular age range, right? Like people read YA anywhere from like age 10 to 100, right? Like YA is not limited by the age of the reader in any sense. So I think what I'm saying is like, because you're dealing with a certain level of like a certain stage, I think like your protagonist tends to be a certain stage in life. Like they're not married. Or if they are, it's because they're in a dystopian island novel setting. Or like, you know, they're going through some kind of like, how do I become the hero of my own story? A lot of times there's a lot of sort of like romance, gender, sexuality, discovery. There's social warrior justice, you know, like I feel like those are themes that you're getting in a lot of YA. And so I don't know. I mean, I like, just like how romance is like, it's boy meets girl or something. One person meets another or two people meet another. We could have all kinds of romance these days, but these days, as if I'm like 80 talking about romance. But I do think that YA has like some very specific markers in terms of theme that make it more than just a category. Same with middle grade.
So if we compare romance to YA, and if we compare a fantasy romance to a fantasy YA, if we take out the fantasy element, there's still a romance plot.
Right.
But if we take out the fantasy element on a YA,
there's still a YA element.
But what is it other than a theme as opposed to an actual plot? Like we can remove, like in a fantasy romance, we can remove all of the fantasy parts and there's still a story about two people falling in love. It's just in a closed environment.
Yeah, but I mean, so we're starting from the assumption then that like an easy tropey plot line is what defines a genre. Like romance is romance because it's always one person falls in love with another. But like,
that's what makes what a romance is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not true for all genres. So like, you know, let's say you're talking about
outside of like lit fic, is that not like, if you're taking genre fiction, every murder or every mystery has a mystery in it, and every horror has a horror in it.
But every fantasy isn't necessarily like elves having an adventure, and every sci-fi isn't necessarily robots, right? Like,
but every fantasy is in a fantasy world, and every sci-fi is in a sci-fi world.
Right. And every YA is in a like, well, right this second
world that just happens to be teenagers.
No. I'm going to say I read significantly more YA than you do right this second. And that part of our dispute here is coming from like that, because I really do think like your YA fantasy, your YA sci-fi, your historic YA, your YA mystery, it's going to have more than just like, well, the protagonists were 19 and that's your like common denominator. It's always going to have a like.
But so then would you say that is not the case for an adult one? That like comparing an adult fantasy and a YA fantasy, that there are not specific things to an adult that define it as an adult versus a YA?
Well, I mean, a fantasy is a genre too, right? So like,
right, like an adult. So we're saying comparing YA fantasy to just fantasy, which would be intrinsically, it would be inferred that it is an adult fantasy. Would there not be elements in adult fantasy marking it as adult fantasy as opposed to YA fantasy?
Yeah, I think
so then would adult be its own genre? For the same reason that YA is its own genre.
Okay. And now we're going to start having to get to, but the bookstores have a YA section. And so for the purpose of marketing, the people who are like walking into a bookstore or looking at Amazon at the teen stuff, like I mean, maybe the adult world is just significantly bigger, but I think we're talking about a different thing. Like, I think when we say adult versus YA, the delineator is what's in YA, not what's an adult. Like adult isn't a genre because the adult world can have so many things, right? But the YA world can't. It's limited to a certain subset. We're never going to agree on this, you guys.
Yeah, no, because now I'm just thinking about all the nonfiction categories, and then are they all genres?
We've got lots of people here who totally agree with you, right?
And then, like, there's the bestseller shelf. Like, is the bestseller shelf a genre then too? Or is it just that some people are looking for bestsellers?
Okay, listen. If we're looking for this to be like a logic exercise, you win. And also, if we're looking for it to be like when you're talking to a bookstore, an agent, somebody looking to buy a book,
also be coming down to us having different definitions of genre.
Yeah, which also kind of doesn't matter, right? Because the truth is that what really counts here is like, how does a reader find your book? And I mean, arguably, readers don't even care what's a genre or subgenre. They care that your book is YA fantasy. So we need to know then what YA means, and we need to know what fantasy means, and we need to know what the market's looking for in those two ways. Who cares if it's called a category or a genre? YA is not the same as adult.
No, it's not. I'm not at all saying that it is.
Right. And
I'm saying that it is a genre that is then written for a market. Like if they no. YA is not the genre, but it's a book. Like a YA fantasy is a fantasy that's written for the YA market.
Somebody solve this for us.
There's no solution going on over there.
No, but lots of interesting discussion about it. Wait, somebody just asked an interesting question, but we're at 5:45. We've argued our way through the break. I'm so sorry, guys.
We do
You're just going to have to write with us now instead, which will be nice, conflict-free writing. But okay, let me come up with I think we need to have someone gets in a logic argument. Dispute. As our prompt. All right, there you go.
All right, so we are going to write for the next 10 minutes. Good luck, everybody.
All right, we are back. Did you get any work done that wasn't related to that?
No, because then I was helping Nikki with her question.
Was it a real question?
Now, and so now I'm confused about what's going on. There we go. Yeah, so Nikki, a dystopian is going to be anything where it's set in the future from now and society has changed in a way that's not post-apocalyptic, but has somehow been warped. So like it looks like a good intention was meant and then something disastrous happened with it. So I said Hunger Games, Divergent. What are some other like really popular examples of dystopian?
Red Queen.
Yeah. A lot of YA is dystopian. It's a very common element in it. It can also sometimes be in modern day, but it's an alternate timeline where something like Man in the High Castle takes place now, but based on the premise that we lost World War II. So that would be dystopian. It's modern, but there's an element that changed. Steampunk is alt history, where you're going back usually the 1800s. It can be different than that, but they're using the technology of that time to replicate modern technology. Or sometimes, again, it has that dystopian element where they have had some breakthrough, like they figured out electricity before electricity was actually figured out. And normally it ends with like really crazy Rube Goldberg devices for them to do like really dumb things like shaving their faces instead of just using a razor. Wild Wild West is the only example of steampunk I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah. Spence is a much better example than me, where Spence just gave the actual origin of it, whereas I just gave a description of what it is.
Whoa, okay.
I always think of people with like ridiculous glasses and stuff. Like they figured out bifocals, but they're the most ridiculous bifocals you've ever seen.
And stay tuned for next week when we argue about what category and genre actually is instead of just whether YA is a.
I feel like we worked it out behind the scenes.
Did we work it out behind the scenes? I feel like
where our disagreement came from.
Yeah, no, I feel like we determined that there actually is no right. Good answer, which doesn't make either of us happy.
The definition of genre, and there are multiple definitions of genre.
So wrong. But I mean, you know what? It is. I think it is interesting for the sake of thinking about like who are you marketing to? Like, let's suppose we said category means who you market to. That would destroy YA, right? Because like
a lot of YA readers are not actually YA.
Because a lot of YA readers aren't teenagers.
That's what I mean by YA. They're not young adults.
Yes, well,
young adult readers are not young adults,
but they want young adult fiction.
Yeah,
and also you're saying, well, is adult a genre then? Like, I don't know, because like it shouldn't be, but so who do you market your horror to?
Also, is this like a bizarre explanation for why Amish romance exists?
Oh. And in that case, is Amish the category or the genre?
Is this like similar to adults craving, like, is this adults who crave like a YA style of story, but like are unwilling to read YA stories, so they read Amish stories?
Yeah. Nikki, you have asked a couple of times. What?
Amish romance is a thing.
It is totally a thing. Nikki asked a couple times if she wanted to self-publish, how would she do that? Are we talking about general self-publishing? Because if so, that's a really big question. That we might need to discuss over multiple.
Yeah. I mean, the very basic of it is you sign up for an Amazon KDP account and
you write a book and throw it on the book,
and you post it on KDP, and you have now become a self-published author. how to do it successfully is a much more loaded question.
Oh God, we also need to answer this. Could Harry Potter be considered steampunk given that wizards don't use technology? But Harry Potter was written in like the 1990s. So
wait, read it one more time. Oh, wizards, I
Yeah.
see it right there. Wizards don't use technology, but they do use magic. And I feel like because they use magic, that means that it is not steampunk. Like steampunk implies that there's nothing magical going on. They've just figured out how to make all these ridiculous things out of gears and steam.
But the wizards in Harry Potter also use the technology of the day.
Well, yes, that being said, Harry Potter, at least in the movies, I don't remember how things were described so much in the book, but in the movies, like the like props department and the set designers definitely use the aesthetic of steampunk.
Okay, so to Nikki, who wants to know how to self-publish, let's just start talking about that next time, because man, do we have things to say about
Nikki,
that other than Amazon.
If you pop in a couple minutes early, I don't know if you're one of the ones who normally does or not, and that it is what it is. But if you do pop on a couple minutes early, a couple minutes before 4 p.m. Eastern, just put a message in the comments. Just post in comments that we're talking about how to self-publish, and we'll do that, because we will absolutely forget. A week is a very long time from now, but like Sandy and I are both many times self-published. We can absolutely walk you through the process.
We can't necessarily tell you how to sell those books well yet, but we can tell you how to publish them.
We're getting better at it.
Better.
We can at least like point her in directions for how to figure like where to look for help on all the various categories within self-publishing.
Yes. And in the meanwhile, Spence is going to determine the category versus genre thing for us in a legalistic type way, I think. We appreciate. So you go do that. Go blog on that. Tell us the answer. We just need one. Okay, it's 6:04. We got to let everybody go. So thanks for joining us, and we will be back next week.
Thanks for participating in all of that insanity this week.
It's fun, right? I don't know if anybody got work done. A few people got some words in, but we learned some things we don't know. I got a little work done too.
I got to the point where she tells the angel to milk a cat for her. So I'm making very little. That was one of my favorite lines. And when I reread it, I don't know if you guys ever have this experience, but like you've just written a novel, you've let it sit for a little bit, you picked it up to do that first line or the first round of editing, and you read a line that you forgot. You're so funny that you wrote this line that like you pee yourself when you read it the first time. Milk a cat for me is that line.
Can't even. All right. So Haley Haggerty is apparently streaming sprints right now. So go join her if you want to continue this fun. And we will, see you next week talking about Angel milking a cat. Thank you for.
It doesn't actually do it. Sorry.
Goodness gracious. Right. Thanks, everyone.
See you soon.